right. Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday, and welcome back to another episode of our Fatherhood and Mental Health. This is episode 3, and we have a very special guest with us tonight, Mr. LB Johnson.
Hey now, how you
Welcome,
doing?
All right.
welcome.
Welcome,
Well, You
welcome.
you said
Welcome.
that was special. I was looking around like, okay, I see the brother in there. Yeah, let's go.
So we want to, before we get to Mr. Johnson, want to welcome our panel back. Yours truly, Ashley. We have Miss Nina with us, and then our very own Mr. Al Sims. Welcome back to joining us tonight,
All
Mr.
right.
Al. And so we're just gonna hop right into it. We don't have an intro video. We want to give Mr. Johnson his full time. And so if you could just give us a little background of yourself, even before fatherhood, and kind of your upbringing and what that looks like, and
No.
go for it.
So I was born in Anchorage, Alaska,
Okay.
raised in Northern California. Majority of my life, I was went through some struggles with my dad early on. Mom came in and rescued me. I'm trying to give you the quick version. Was raised by a single mother, homeless with my mom at, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old. Growing up in Richmond, California, went through a lot of struggles with my mom. But one thing she always showed us is grace. She always showed us to keep God first and trusting Him. And even when it looked like, and we would ask, like, why, is God, why are we going through this? She always reminded us that it's bigger than the situation in the moment. That God had a plan, and that's one thing she instilled in us is just really trusting in God and believing His word. And so from there, I went from California, ended up in New Mexico. They call it the land of entrapment, and I truly got trapped. I've been here now 17 years. My background is I've worked with children for 15 years in residential treatment group homes, helping with mental health and behavioral children. And I currently work at a recovery center as an outreach manager, working with adults now, coming off the streets homeless, getting them into recovery, and helping them, man, to give them a second start at life.
Wow, that's a lot. And I want to dig into that a little bit. So let's start with your dad. How did you initially get with your dad, and what did that transition look like to get your mom?
So we're living in Anchorage, Alaska. My mom's dad was in the military, so that's how we got there. Folks always be asking, black folks in Alaska. Yeah, it was about us and 3 other people.
Yes.
No, but so my mom's military brat or whatever. Dad grew up, whatever. Her, and my dad, met, whatever. They went to high school together, things of that nature. She had my 2 older brothers first with him, and then had me. I'm actually a twin. I have a twin sister. So then had us, the twins. My dad was very abusive for 10 years. My mom was with him 10 years. For that whole 10 years, he abused her. I never witnessed it because I was really, really young. But my older brothers witnessed it, time and time again. One day, my mom, she had to get out. She went to a revival one night. True story. An African minister came to Anchorage, Alaska, was preaching a revival. She got saved that night at the revival and decided she had to leave Alaska. Unfortunately, she didn't have a lot of money. She couldn't take all of us. So her plan was to take the younger ones, me, my sister, and we have a younger sister that's 4 years under us, and then come back and get my older brothers, once she could afford it. She asked me what I wanted to do, where I want to go. I'm 6 years old. I'm like, I want to go with my brothers. So I ended up staying with my brothers. For my mom left to go try to do better in life. And for the next 8 months was probably the worst time of my life to date. A lot of emotional abuse. My dad tried to put us up for adoption while we're during that 8 month time. Uh, every time my mom would try to call and reach out, he wouldn't let us talk to her. She would send money and birthday cards. He wouldn't give it. Like we did. We found all this out after we ended up reuniting with her. But during the time, we just thought my mom had just forgot about us for 8 months. Uh, she ended up sneaking into Alaska because her mom, my grandma, still lived there. My grandma called us one day. She was like, "Hey, get all your clothes and stuff together. I'm gonna take y'all shopping, and I want to wash some of your clothes." So we got some of our clothes together, and I remember we got in the car, and the whole way there, she's asking us about if we missed our mom and things like that. And I remember walking in her house and I hugged my mom because she was standing right there, and we just broke down. We couldn't believe it. And I'm only 7 years old at this time, but I
Mm,
remember my mom's stomach like gargled because she was nervous. She hadn't seen her boys in 8 months. And I remember thinking, what if she's a robot? The true story, don't judge me. But I was like, wait, but she came that night. Well, we spent one night in Alaska. That night she drove from Anchorage, Alaska to Haines, Alaska to the ferry, which is about 4 to 5 hours away. Right before we got on the ferry, she called my dad on the payphone. So you know it was a long time ago. Uh,
mhm,
and she told him, "I got my boys. You'll never hurt them again, and you'll never see them again." And we hopped on a ferry and moved to Seattle, Washington, or Burien, Washington. Excuse me. At this time, she was living in Burien, Washington. She had a 2 bedroom apartment with a roommate with
mm,
my sisters, but she wasn't on her feet like she wanted to be. But because of the calls and her just she was worried about us. And when my dad tried to put us for adoption, the way Alaska worked at the time, the mom automatically had custody. So when
mhm,
he tried to put us up for adoption, they found her and reached out like, hey, their dad's trying to, he's trying to give up his rights and give them up for adoption. So that
mhm,
was her like alert to come get us back, so to speak. So she did, but she wasn't prepared financially. We didn't have a home, well, she had an apartment. So that's where the struggle kicked in. And that was the first of many lessons I learned from my mom that I wouldn't understand until I got a lot older. Because for her, she tried to have a plan. The plan was, hey, let me go get on my feet, stack up some money, then I'll go back get my boys. But I believe it was God because what we were going through, she literally saved our lives. I truly believe that. But she came and she got us, and we went through a lot of struggles after that. Just being, she ended up having to move out from her friend. We didn't have anywhere to go. We ended up homeless in Seattle. Then we ended up homeless in Tacoma, Washington, briefly. We'd always we had family in all these cities, so we'd always have someone to stay with for a little bit. But when you're a single mother traveling with 5 kids, young
mm.
kids, ain't nobody gonna let you stay too long. Look, I have 6 kids of my own now, and I'm like, look, I love them to death, but I don't expect nobody to take these kids in. Uh,
Yeah.
just-
The simple
so
fact that in my mind, like this sounds like a movie. Like her focus is I'm getting my babies. I don't know
yeah,
how we gonna live afterwards. I don't know what's the plan. She
yeah,
just knew that she was gonna get her babies no matter what it took. And that right there is I'm like almost in tears.
yeah. It's
At 7 years old though, when you were with your dad, like do you even remember how your mental status, like what were you thinking?
oh, it was it. I was like I was 7 by age, but I remember stuff so vividly from that time. It's things that happened at 9 and 10 I don't remember, but I remember 6 and 7 so bad. I was in therapy for almost 4 years,
Okay.
and we spent a year and a half on me being 6 and 7. That's how like
Ooh.
intense that 8 month period was, and it seemed like a lifetime. Again, I was only 6 7 years old, so I didn't realize it was only 8 months. It felt like 8 years,
Mm.
but it was very traumatic. And I want to give a little context. My dad was married when he met my mom. My mom didn't know. My dad lived in Louisiana. He was supposed to go to Alaska, work on the fisher boats, make money to send for his family. Instead, he
Mm.
moved to Alaska, met my mom, and basically created a new family. So my mom didn't know he was married, didn't know he already had one son. Uh, my dad to date has 13 kids we know, or had, excuse me, 13 kids we knew about, and my mom had 5 of his 13.
Oh my God.
So Papa was definitely a Rolling Stone. So once my mom escaped literally from him, it was almost like starting back over, and trying to figure it out what it looked like. Um, we were the My dad's wife naturally hated us because we were a reminder of what he did. So
Mm-hmm.
she we went through a lot of hell. She was very strict. I want to be clear. She never physically touched us, but mentally, emotionally,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
they would. There's this place called the Intermission that they had, Once my dad tried to give us up for adoption and found out he couldn't, there's a place where basically you take your kids to till you decide if you want to give them up for adoption and or where kids go while they're waiting to be adopted.
Mm.
So they start. My dad would start every weekend. Friday he would take us to the intermission and then pick us up Sunday. And then my dad had a golden rule in his house, and it was what happens in my house stays in my house,
Mm.
which meant on Monday we couldn't go to school and talk about where we spent the weekend every
Wow.
weekend. Uh, and then it made it worse because we would go home on Sunday nights, and my big brother would talk about like he would tell us what they did, movie nights and went out for pizza. These, family great weekends as a family. Just him, his mom, his daughter, because he had a younger daughter at this time, my little sister, and then my dad. So they literally had this family time while we were put into this intermission every weekend. And I remember laying in the bed with my brother. I have a brother, Callie's what we call him. Callie's 4 years older than me, and then my brother, Dog Johnson. That's what my mama called him Dog. Everybody be like, that is real name. My mama called him Dog. Okay, but Dog. So we were the three that were together, and we'd go to this intermission. And I remember just laying in the bed, and I can only imagine what I was going through at 6 and 7 dealing with this. But for my brothers, especially my older brothers, they had to protect and keep on. They had to keep up the face. They couldn't show me that they were just as scared, that they were fearful, that they didn't know what was next. And this is that, if I'm 7, they're 11 and let me do some math, and 9,
Yeah,
trying
yeah.
to we're coping with things that adults can't handle. And it's even now, after even therapy and everything, definitely a different person today. As I think back, so I went through a time, fast forward, where
Mhm.
I was on vacation. As Black folks, we call vacation when we got to sit down for a couple of days or months or years. So
Mhm.
I was on
Okay, okay.
vacation
I
for
read you.
90
I got
days. Okay.
okay.
It's supposed to be 21 days. I was supposed to go do a alcohol and drug program. I got
Mm,
sentenced to about 7 years ago.
mm.
And during that time, God put on my heart, and just so you little backtrack, 2 years prior, I got back to back DUIs, 3 months apart. I'll let you know what led to that. That's another story. But
Okay.
while I went through everything, probation, did all the therapy, I was sentenced to a year of therapy and everything court ordered, did everything I was supposed to do. But because of the probation officer I had at the time that didn't do his due diligence, they made a mistake and I ended up getting sentenced to jail to the drug program after I did 2 years of everything they asked me to do. I was supposed to only do a year. So I
Mm.
get sentenced and I have to go sit down. The program's supposed to be 21 days, but it's during COVID. So
Oh.
it took me 3 weeks before I even got into the program. Then after I got in the program, I had to submit to see the judge again. So long story short, I ended up doing 90 days, 3 months. During that time, the first week, as soon as the first night, I was like, okay, God, I'm here for a reason. I remember the story of Jonah, and I'm like, okay, God, yeah, I shouldn't be here, but I am. So I'm not going to waste time saying why me, why me. Just what am I supposed to do, God? You going?
Mhm.
I can't. I knew I couldn't go home till I did whatever He wanted me to do in there. So I got on there. I grabbed my Bible. Well, first I didn't have a Bible, so I borrowed a Sally's Bible until I can get my own. And I started praying and doing Bible studies every day. And God spoke to my heart and He said, "Start writing a book." And at
Mm.
this time, I'm 37, 8 years old. I'm like, I ain't lived enough life. Like, yeah, I've been through some stuff. I'm like, that's something you do when you retire, after you're all done. But God said, no, start writing a book and just start with at the beginning. So that's what I began to do. I began to write. Every day I was in there, I began to write this book, and I filled up 2, 3 notebooks just full of what I had been through before I
Wow.
ever moved to New Mexico. So I've been in New Mexico 17 years. So it was just based the time between Alaska and California, and that I began to write about. And during that writing, that was my real like beginning of therapy for me, was to really things that I forgot, things that I guess kind of tucked away, begin to come out. And all I could do is pray and write, cry and write, pray some more, cry some more, write. And it was pretty much a rotation I went through as I was dealing with realizing what I had been through. And again, So therapy, I was court ordered for a year, and then I stayed and did 2.5 more years with the same therapist because I seen the impact that it had within that first year. That I
Mm,
seen it was something that I needed, and I think that's very important. I have to say this to any man that's watching and any man that's listening. Please, like, get some therapy. Get somebody you can process what you've been through. I mean, I tell everybody all the time, if you lived through the 80s and 90s alone and 2000s, you did some trauma. You know,
yeah,
pandemic was trauma for some folks.
yeah,
Some folks realized they didn't like each other that had been loving each other for years when they was forced to sit in the same house with each other for periods of time. But so I tell
Yeah.
everybody, find someone you can process your trauma with. Because if you want to be the man and or woman that God has called you to be, the only way you can get there is if you process the trauma. If not, you're going to continue to cycle of bad relationships, cycle of bad decisions. You won't be the father or mother you could have been because we got all this stuff built in. Some of the stuff we've dealt with that we to us, and in my head, I wasn't an axe murderer. I hadn't been in
hmm
and out of jail all my life. So I survived. That's literally
mm.
how I felt. I survived, and my mother could do no wrong, and still to this day can't. But one of the things that came out that I realized I had abandonment issues because when my mom left me for that 8 months, that because she was my superwoman and this amazing mother, you single mother that raised 5 children, I never even you couldn't tell me that anything she did was wrong, even though she didn't plan it or last thing she it's not like she said I'm gonna abandon my kids, but I had issues that affected every relationship I attempted to have because of that moment. That at 6 years old, something that happened that prior to going to therapy, I didn't even realize I was dealing with.
What is that? What did that look like in your intimate relationships? That abandonment that you got from your mother. What did that look like?
It didn't exist. I couldn't trust anybody to be with just one person. I couldn't be faithful. I couldn't have a successful relationship because I didn't trust that they were going to stay there. So I always had it's crazy because me and my brothers all had this same mentality, but it was a safety net. You have to have a safety net because eventually they're going to leave. And when they leave, if you don't have a safety net, it's going to hurt a lot worse. So we literally, and I say we now because we've discussed it, but at the time we didn't know and we didn't realize that all of us in our relationships had these safety nets because we didn't, it wasn't that we thought the woman was going to cheat. We just thought eventually she's going to leave. So if she's going to leave, I have to have something else, on the back burner just in case. So when she leaves, it doesn't hurt as bad. And I remember praying, as like I literally prayed to God, like, God, why can't I be in a successful relationship? Why can't I trust one, individual to hold me down and be the support I need? Why do I feel like I need to have more than one person, at all times? Or, if I get close enough and really feel like I'm in love or, this is serious, that was like a red flag. Like, oh, you better get some because if you love her this much, eventually she's gonna hurt you.
Oh my goodness. I need a breather. Mr. Al, do you have any questions? Right, because oh my God, my heart.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So yeah, I have one question for him. So and so you said because of the abandonment issues, you started taking therapy, right? And
Well,
when
it during therapy, I realized that I had these issues.
okay. So at did you what point did uh start healing? Notice that you're coming back from it and start healing, that you
good, good answer. Good question.
unlocked your full potential by getting past that.
And one of the things you hear him say, at first you got to admit you got a problem. So that
Hmm.
was the first thing is realizing that this isn't we, especially as black men, especially when you're young, back in the day we called it being a player, and you wore that badge with honor. I'm a player, and have any girl, but the reality is it's trauma.
Hmm.
It's you find someone to love and you push them away. You hurt them because you think they're going to hurt you. And for
Hmm.
me, when my therapist helped me realize that I had these abandonment issues, then I was like, she began to tell me what it looked like, and I recognized it. in my own life. I recognized it in my relationships. So then the first thing was like, okay, one, I had to heal and forgive my mom. I had to deal with that hurt. I had to deal with the
Hmm.
fact that I was so scared she was going to leave me, to the point where they called me a mama's boy because I wouldn't leave her side. I didn't play a lot of sports. I was When my brothers were going out to play basketball and things, that normal boys would do. I didn't want to leave her, even when I was young, especially probably the first 5 to 10 years after she came and rescued us, because I was scared she wouldn't come back or I wouldn't see her. And I didn't, again, at the time, I didn't realize I'm doing this, but they're calling me, oh, mama's boy. And, and they used to call, they used to call me talk about whiny elk, because first of all, my name, middle name has ELK in it. But because I whined, they said I always whined. I was the crybaby. First of all, I'm the youngest boy, by the way. I got a younger sister, but I'm the youngest boy out of my mother's children. But
Hmm.
I would, if my mom was leaving me, she was going there. I was that crybaby, real talk. And at the time, they just thought he just, all right, just a baby, a brat, whatever. No, it was because I was scared that if my mom left me, she wasn't coming back.
And you didn't even know
That,
how to express that emotion, so you cried,
at
which
all.
is
Then
what a
that's
lot of boys, men do. They don't know how to express to it, either anger or crying.
We're not taught. And even now, I have a 7 year old son, and I try to teach him to like and allow him to, because that's the other part. We're
Yes.
quick to tell our, especially little kids, I told you what to do, now be quiet. Don't talk back. But you got to allow kids to process sometimes. You got to allow kids get it off their chest, say how they feel, say what they're thinking or feeling in that moment. So I try to make sure do that with my younger children. It's like, okay, why did you do that? Or why are you feeling like that way? Or, why are you acting? And especially my son, he gets it honest, but my 7 year old is a straight crybaby, man, to the fullest. So even now I'm like, okay, what's going on? But one of the things that I realize is, when I went on vacation for 90 days, he went from seeing his daddy every day to a period of time where, yeah, you got to see him on some video phone every once in a while, but I'm talking about every day he's seen me, to the point where for 90 days he couldn't see me. So I realized I've already, I,
Repeated the cycle a little bit. Yeah, it's okay.
I want to jump in. I was listening, and I'm gonna commend you because it's so important that we do exactly what you just said. We have to journey and actually find out what our true trauma is. And when you were talking about your mother and the abandonment, I can honestly, you know, I can go there with you. And from a female standpoint, but mine wasn't crying. Mine was, I was emotionally unstable with my reaction. I overreacted to everything because never felt emotionally safe. And so just by you sharing that you knew that's where it came from, even though you looked at your mother as the most, beautiful woman in the world, like you say, your superwoman, you
yeah,
recognize that a lot of your pain came from the very person that rescued you. I heard
yeah,
that today.
Mm.
I heard that today. The very person that hurt you is the very person who rescued you. And that is the biggest sign of trauma and manipulation. And for that, I can honestly say I commend you because now you're letting people see what that looks like, you know what I'm saying, in real terms, in real life, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying, and how you applying it. So kudos to you. I just wanted to get in and say that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I yeah, oof, okay. Let's talk
Yeah.
about
So,
fatherhood. Oh, go ahead, Al. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, the reason why I was asking him that question is because I also have a similar background. uh, uh, been incarcerated. I actually was put up for adoption. You said you was
Yeah,
almost put up for adoption. I actually was put up for adoption, and so I had that abandonment issue
yeah,
also. Except mine's came out in the form of self confidence and not thinking that I was good enough, and this is the reason why everybody's gonna leave me because I'm not good enough, or whatever. And
yeah,
I also had to go through therapy also. So I went to therapy all the way from a kid, all the way probably up to probably like 30 or so. So for a real extensive amount of time, I did go to therapy, and as far as like you what you were saying about how the abandonment issues show up in a relationship, like in a form of thinking that your partner is going to leave at certain points. I also had those thoughts
Mhm.
also, uh, and during my journey and my healing journey, I realized one thing when it comes to relationships: you cannot have a successful relationship on a defense. You got to be on the offense. You can't if
Mm,
both people are on
that's
the
good.
defense, then
Mhm.
that relationship won't work because y'all both of y'all are trying to guard y'all heart. So y'all not being truthful with each other because both of y'all trying to on a defense and y'all trying to guard y'all heart and protect yourself when it should be God that's protecting you,
Yeah,
you can't, if somebody wanted to do something to you, like that, you really can't stop that,
yeah,
because there are people that's out there that can really put on mask and really think, and you really think, they're for you. So you have to kind of leave that up to God to protect you, and you can't. Like I'm saying, you sabotage a relationship if you're if you're on a defense. If
Yeah.
both of y'all on the defense, you're really sabotaging. So you're not even giving the relationship a chance from the start. You know.
well, what I
So
realized, oh, sorry, let me cut you off.
Go ahead.
yeah. So so you're not really giving the relationship a chance from the start. What is y'all have to lay the groundwork from the beginning with being open, transparent, and true to yourself. And once the relationship continues to progress, then there has to be trust. There
Yeah.
has to be trust with both partners in order to make that relationship work. Y'all have to become vulnerable with each other at some point. That's the only way it's going to be successful. So being on the defense, won't work. And I learned that also.
Okay.
Well, the one thing I think mistake in society that we've all been taught and we've heard, first of all, it's two things. It's we've all were raised on Disney, the idea of happily ever after, that one day you're going to meet this, this imaginary prince, and everything's going to be better, or princess in that case.
Yep.
And the reality is, I always say this. I think they never talk about what happened the next day. Like, with
Ah,
Little Mermaid,
that
she
part.
met Eric. Everything was cool, but they didn't talk about when Eric started getting mad because she kept coming to bed smelling like fish. Like,
Yeah.
every situation is like we see Disney as all, but there was some parts that was all bad, all right? And that's the reality. First thing we got to realize. The second is we're taught our better half. We always say that, we hear that. So when you're meeting somebody, you're taught you all you need to be is 50%. She gonna be your other 50%. And that's a lie. You need to heal, get to 100, get to the best version of yourself, and then y'all meet and become one and grow stronger together. But you come in half, stocked, or half the man you should be, or half the woman in that case, and expecting it to be successful is just not going to happen. We have to deal with our trauma. And I'm really talking to black folks more, and I mean, everybody has trauma, and I don't want to take that away, but we deal with a lot of, I'll say as a minorities, we deal with a lot of trauma and we tuck it, we hide it, we laugh it off. We make fun of the uncle. Everybody know don't go near that uncle, especially if you've been drinking, or that,
Hmm.
that auntie that you don't leave alone. And it's like, wait, why are we? We'll warn our kids about don't be by this family member, or if they're acting weird, but we don't remove them, or we don't call the police. Like, we got real life pedophiles in our family that we don't address. We tuck it under the rug and say, oh, he just crazy, don't pay him no mind. And it's like we have to, we as minorities, first we gotta get out this idea of stop snitching. I'm a grown man. Ain't
That
nobody
part.
I'm not gonna allow anyone to hurt what I'm building or hurt my legacy or my loved ones, period.
Yes.
So if we
Yes.
love ourselves first enough, but then love our family enough, we gotta do something. Of course, the first step is you try to get them help, and but if they up to no good and they doing wrong, they need to sit down. Like
Yes.
everybody else has. Like that's where we make the mistake, man. As minorities, we laugh off a lot of trauma. We
Hmm.
laugh off a lot of real life issues, and we have to stop that. If we really want to see us become the best version of us in this America, especially nowadays, the America we
Hmm.
live in today, we
Hmm.
got to start addressing these issues, this trauma, man, and we got to stop laughing it off.
Ooh, okay. I need you for 2 hours or so. Okay, but let's jump into Cause you it's so many good, like I just want to dig a little deeper, but let's get to the babies. All right, so you have 6 children.
Yes, total.
Okay, so you kind of almost half for your daddy there. So
Look,
tell me, tell us how that start. Well, we know how it happened, but how old were you? What did the family dynamic look like, and how did your past upbringing affect your fatherhood?
okay, so my first child at 21. So that was the first curse I broke. My dad was having kids from day, he started and never stopped. But I definitely went through a period of time where uh, it was about fun. Again, I didn't understand myself, didn't understand my trauma. I was taught sex was a means when you're struggling and broke is a means to get money. You know, you can, and this sounds almost bad because I wasn't, which was I was not nobody's prostitute. Okay,
Make it plain.
but
Make it
So
plain.
I knew.
you was a gigolo.
Look. I mean, not in the sense, not by definition. However, I learned early on that if I could make someone like me and appreciate me, they would get me things. So when you're
Okay.
struggling broke, you and your brothers are sharing clothes, and you get this new oh moment. It's like, okay, now this is what we're doing. So just to break it down, to date, I have a 23-year-old, 17-year-old, 14-year-old, two 7-year-olds, and a 6-year-old.
Okay.
I have three I have two baby mothers, and I have a
Oh,
woman and I have one woman I'm currently with.
okay.
Uh, I have four biological children, and I have two that, for the sake of this, I'm going to say stepchildren, but I don't call them stepchildren. They're my
Gotcha.
babies. I've been with them for with their mama 9 years, and I've known them just as long. I've raised them girls, so
I
no
love it.
question here. But that is my squad, and for me, the biggest thing through all this that was a true generation curse is I'm present. Okay.
Mm,
Uh, I'll be honest with my 23-year-old. That's my oldest son. That was, and I say it to him every chance I get. That was a trial and error. I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know what I was doing. I was still, acting up and rolling, dealing with my own trauma, and so he suffered because of it. Nothing
mm,
like physical or anything, but I just didn't love him. I wasn't as present as I should have been. Uh, my mother passed away in 2007, and I moved out of California, which left
mm,
him in California, and I moved to New Mexico, which was a mistake. And for first couple of years, he would come out here, every once in a while. His mother did her best to try to keep me present in it, but I was still dealing with my own issues. So he suffered with that. So even today, my relationship, my 23-year-old, is not where I wish it would be. When he
mm.
turned 20, well, he'll be 23 in August. Let me say that correctly. So he's not 23 yet, but when we celebrated his 21st birthday and had an amazing time and got to hug it out and have some deep conversations, but that relationship still isn't 100% repaired how I wish it would be. And I recognize, only because, again, therapy and because of dealing with my own ish, that's the reason why we're not where I wish we were. But it's a
Mm.
lesson learned, and I made sure with the rest of my children that never has happened, and I'm very involved. I'll continue to raise them daily, and that's my first thing is I have to be present. It's not about some mothers or some individuals. I'll say I don't want to put it on the moms, but some people will make you think it's a financial thing when it comes to being a father, and it's not at all.
That's
our,
right.
our, our children need us. They need us present. They need us loving on them, hugging on them. You know, they need us just in the moments. Sometimes you just got to chill with your kid and let them lay on you. Just hear your heartbeat. You know, uh,
Mm.
when a mother has a baby, they talk about skin to skin for that first connection. And at times there's been where babies have come out, and not breathing, and they put them up to the mother's chest, and they'll start breathing because that's the connection. Same thing with the father when he does that skin to skin within that first couple, minutes or hours of the baby being born. It does something. There's a connection that's everlasting. And with each one of my children now, to date, they can lay on my chest and go to sleep. It's their safe
Mm.
place. And that's something I wish I would have understood and knew with my oldest, but it's something that I make sure. And to me, it's very symbolic. It's not just the actual physical of them laying on my chest, but it's having that connection and them feeling like, as a parent, as a father, that I'm a safe place. And that's
It's
something I never got to experience.
that right there, like you. Oh my God,
Yeah.
I've never heard a man say that about their children. Like And it's culture spot to where you all think that you just always got to just give, to where sometimes it's the simple things, it's the simplest things that's just letting your babies lay their head on your chest. That does so much for their central nervous system and everything. It's something that money can never buy. It's the most priceless thing. And I just applaud you like that. Go ahead, Al, because I can't.
So for me,
Oh,
speaking on fatherhood, I just
oh,
reached a monumental moment in my life just just past week. I have two children. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have a 19-year-old son. Um, and my daughter that's always been my angel. And the rough time I had was with my son, right? And there was a lot of lessons that I had to learn when raising males than with
Yeah, yeah,
females, you know. So there was a lot of things that I had to learn. And so the monumental moment was for me this past weekend was I had to move my son into college, to
wow,
his college dome, right?
yeah,
So that was a break and also a cycle in my family on my because really no one on my I don't know well I have one probably one person on my mother's side went to college, but most of the kids that like my cousins on my mom's side, none of them went to college. Now on my dad's side we have a few that went to college, but anyway, so with my bloodline, I didn't go to college. I didn't get a chance to go to college because I was out doing the wrong thing. So I wanted, naturally you want better for your children. You
yeah,
want your
mm-hmm.
yeah,
children, you want your children to do the opposite of the mistakes that you made, and that's sort of the fatherhood role and also the motherhood role. A lot of us are trying to stop our children from making the same mistakes we made in life, but the lesson that I had to learn though, because I had a very hard struggle with my son. Me and my son bumped heads. Our relationship is really not all that good right now because we bump heads a lot, just like you with your 22-year-old. That's right. You say he's
yeah.
22.
22,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So we bumped heads also because one thing that we don't realize, although we're trying to keep them from making the same mistakes that we made in life, once they reach a certain age, they have their own mind, they have their own perception of life. So sometimes we have to watch them make that mistake,
yeah,
those mistakes, because sometimes those kids these days think they're smarter than their parents, you
yeah,
know,
We did.
and
We thought the same thing too, though. We thought the
yeah,
same
yeah,
thing. But
yeah.
you
yeah.
can't block your
Without being
child's
slick,
testimony. You cannot
But
block your child's testimony. Is
yeah.
what I've learned. Just you got to let them journey.
So
right,
the
Yeah.
one
right.
thing that I'll say that I had to realize with even like I said, even with my current relationship with my son is I have to respect his truth. Like
Mm.
I know what it was for me, and I know what stopped me from being as present or whatever in his life. But I have to respect his truth. So
Hmm.
for me, I stopped trying to make excuses. I don't go back and forth or try to say your mama this or I didn't do. I don't do that.
Yeah.
I accept how he feels, and I said the one thing that my dad never did for me that I will always do for my son is I'll be available. I'll be
Mm.
he can call, he can text. I'll always there'll never be a moment where I'll let my pride because it's hurtful, especially, I remember there's been times where I'm your daddy, and at the end of the day, you're going to respect me. That's how I wanted to feel. But the reality is once he became, especially I'm not before even before he was 18, as he got older, I had to respect that he has a different truth. So
Yes.
I pray
It's
that
big.
I get to the point where he wants me to be more involved and he wants to reach out to dad. But if he doesn't get to that, I just want to make sure that he knows that I'm always available, that he has the option. Because that's one thing I didn't have the option with my dad, even after everything happened, and so I didn't see my dad after from 7 till 32. That was the next time I seen him. And
Wow,
uh,
your mama was serious. She was like, "You not gonna see your kid." She was
no,
serious
no.
about
So it wasn't my mom at all. My mom always spoke. She gave us options. She gave him options.
that.
He
Okay,
never wanted
gotcha,
to be in our life. He was raising his other family and things of that nature.
gotcha.
At 32, I helped my sister move a friend to Texas, and they
Mhm,
was like, "Hey, we got some family out here. Let's go check them out." In Louisiana, that was like 4 hours from where we were at in Texas. We
mhm,
went to the wedding, and before I got out the car, my sister and brother, who had already uh, they had already seen my dad and had been talking to him, and they had kind of did their forget their reunion,
mhm,
if you will. They told me my dad was going to be at the wedding, so it was.
mm,
I didn't plan to see him when I did, and I went and he seen me, and it was culture shock because I look a lot like him, and we played dominoes, and my girlfriend at the time was like, "It's weird watching you guys at the table because you have the same mannerisms and you guys act the same." But this is a man that didn't raise me. Last time I seen him, I was 7 years old. Now I'm 32, but we had this just natural. We're alike. In certain ways, and I seen him for all of 4 hours before something happened with his wife at the time, and he had to leave the wedding. So I didn't see him again till I got a phone call 2 years ago that he had stage 4 cancer. And I made a decision that I no longer needed an apology because I went to revival years prior, and I laid it all down. And I forgave my dad. So I no longer was looking for him to ask for forgiveness, but I wanted him to know that I was okay. So I drove out there with my family and my youngest son, and he got to meet my youngest son for the first time, and my youngest son got to meet his granddad, and I was just happy for that moment and to
that's all
see
that
him.
matters. That's right. That's right.
But again, for me, and this is why I respect my son and whatever his truth is. For me, I didn't go with expectation. I went out there. I was happy that I got to see my father before he passed. I felt like we got to have some good conversations. Um, you know, and sadly, within 4 months of that, he passed away.
Mm,
Uh, it helped, and even it's crazy because even in my mother's in her death, she was still like leading me and guiding me because my mom passed away in 2007. And when she passed away, that's the worst thing ever happened to me. And that's where I kind of crashed out and, made a lot of horrible mistakes. But when I found out my dad was sick, I was like, man, this is the only parent I have left.
mhm.
So if I can, let me just go be there. Let me let him know, you know, that it's okay. Let me let him know that I'm okay. And despite what he didn't do, I turned out okay. And I always tell
That's
folks, I
right.
thank my dad for not being the father he was because he made me the father I am.
That takes a lot of maturity and growth, and I can tell, like, even if you may not consider yourself fully healed, like, you have progressed so much. Just your mindset, you speak healing. Like, that's how I know you've healed, because it sounds differently than a man that has not healed. You take an accountability. Like, you're just amazing to me at this point. My question to you, in raising, and even to you too, Al, with you all's upbringing, what were some of the differences that you had, and what did you have to kind of change a little bit between raising your boys and then raising your daughters?
Yeah. uh, Al, you want to take that first?
uh, so what I learned is um, the difference between raising my boys, my son and my daughter is well that I think is really a stereotype because I think they say that uh, girls cling more to their fathers because when they grow up, their father's supposed to be an example of what type of man they're gonna attract, and
Mm-hmm.
he's supposed to be that example for her or what a good man and how he's supposed to treat her, you know. So you have to show her your daughter, you know, how she's supposed to be loved by a man, you know. What a male, what a boy, you have to kind of give him the tough side of life that men go through and they're gonna go through in life, so that he'll be better equipped to, to handle the bumps and bruises that, men go through in life. You got to kind of show him, being an example of what a man is supposed to be in the house, how a man, is getting up early in the morning and going out to provide for their family, and you got to be a positive example for him, you know, have been like being a productive citizen in society. You have to show him
Hmm.
all. You have to show him all of those things. That way, hopefully, uh, he will follow suit. Because it's not always. Because I know some parents that's been, the perfect examples, and they kids still go astray. And not all the time it works, because like I said, once they reach a certain age, they have their own perception of life, they have their own thought process, and sometimes kids can be hard-headed, and you can see them about to make a mistake, and you sitting there cringing, and you like, man, I'm just hoping he don't make a mistake that he can't come back from,
Hmm.
because they're these days, kids with the internet and all these kids, they're very book smart, but they don't have a lot of street sense.
Hmm.
They don't have a lot of street sense. So, and I had to realize that, so I just, was hoping that he didn't make a too bad of a mistake,
Okay.
but we always bump heads, because I was like, son, you're doing the wrong thing. This is gonna happen. And he would always fight with me until I just had to just give up, put it in God's hand, and let him, you know, uh, take his own path, you know.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
but later on, after he went through all those things that he went through, he came back to me, just like the prodigal son in the Bible, and said, "Dang, all the stuff you said was gonna happen happened." I said, "Yeah, son, I told you that." And you just fought with me. We was getting into arguments and fights, and so anyway, to see all that, I finally got him off to college. He didn't take the route that I wanted him to take, because I actually wanted him to go to the military to get some more discipline, more structure, and everything, and go to college. But he didn't go. He didn't take that route. He took another route. But at least he's there, and he's in college now. Now, hopefully, he get there, and he matures more, and he does the right thing in college. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. What about you, Mr. Johnson? Tell us about the male versus female.
Well, first of all, my daughters for the most part could do no wrong. Okay, just being honest. But no, seriously, I think the first thing, as when they're younger, there isn't much of a difference. To me, they boys and girls need love the same. I think that's one of the first misconceptions, that you got to be harder on your boys because when they're younger, that you can't show them the same love and affection. And speaking from a boy that wish he had, one, a daddy, two, all for a male perspective, but also when he didn't have a mother, you want that love. That's all. That's all we need. That nurturing. You
Hmm.
know, because of the way society is today, as fathers, we're so fearful of how we raise our sons, because we're scared the the brother was saying earlier, the route they might take.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I believe, and I like how he said it. At the end of the day, we're an example. They don't listen to what we say, but they're watching us.
Everything you do.
A couple weeks ago, I walked into my bedroom, and my son and my youngest daughter, my sons are 7 and my daughter's 6. They had on my shoes and my clothes, and they just walking around. And in the moment, I could do nothing but laugh. But then it hit me real quick, and I know it was God, because the first thing I could think about is, like, one day they're going to walk in your shoes, and they're already
Oh.
crying.
Hmm. Oh,
So
that's
for
good.
me, it was a reminder that they're watching you. Everything you do, everything you say, they might not seem like they're listening, but they're watching you. So be careful. Again, the role model, the what you
Yeah.
how do you model after your kids? What do they see?
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
they're only going to take a percentage of what you tell them, but they see how
Uh,
you move. They see what you're doing.
right.
So what my prayer is that I'm instilling that: don't stop working, work hard. Love hard. Respect at all times. I want my daughters to understand that they are princesses and they are a treasure. I was talking to some older people, and I said, it's like, in the world we live in, women have lost the idea of that their virginity is a treasure. and that it's something that should be sacred and honored, and you don't just throw it out there because we live in a world now that they're told, Herb, and get rid of it. It's almost like a curse nowadays, and it's something they're trying to get rid of,
Protection
exactly, so they
on the
can live this
wall.
different life. But for me, it's like, no, I want my daughters to know you're princesses, you're queens, you have a treasure. You need to be honored, respected. Boys know my daughter's 17. Ain't nobody take you on a date if you ain't willing to come to this house and meet me. You need to
Right.
be willing to shake my hand.
That's right.
I'll be very honest. I have no sense. Okay. Some would say I'm immature, but I'm 43 years old, so I can be immature if I feel like it. But so I'm childish at times. So I do clown. I play like if they get in trouble, I'm laughing. If they mama yelling at them, laughing like you should have listened. Like I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm immature in that sense. In the same breath, they bring their boys around. I might clown a little bit, ask them what he wearing. Make sure he got some money in his pockets. But at the end of the day, like I said, my 17-year-old, I was like, you better start dating somebody because the minute we're going to marry you off, right? You
Oh,
better start. So
don't
it's
kick
like,
him out
look,
already.
now she knows she ain't going nowhere. But no, but for me, it's really just it's still to make sure they understand who they are, who the power they have. I feel like, and I believe I'm blessed because my children are growing up in a two-parent home, which I never seen. I don't know what that looks like. So they get to have both sides. I get to be an ally at times when mom's is tripping, and vice versa. When I'm tripping, moms get to tell them, hey, just stay out the warpath. That those are the little things that I didn't have that I think go a very long way. But regardless, if I could for a minute talk to single mothers, because it's so important to me, especially if
Mhm.
you're raising younger children, don't feel like you have to be macho and tougher on quote unquote little man, punching him and rougher because you feel like he might, if he, because he doesn't have a father, he's missing that. Love little man, cherish little man, and understand that little man is hurting because dad's not there. But you being extra tough on him and being extra nice to the sister, what it does is it builds resentment between the two, between the siblings. Wonder why I always get in trouble what the other person doesn't. And it's not something you need to do. He's little man gonna be okay. Just keep loving him. But I will say, definitely try to get some strong men around you. If you go to church, get some of them deacons, some of them elders. If you got
Yeah.
uncles, whatever, but keep some strong men around little man, to make sure so he gets that other side. But at the end of the day, don't stop loving him. Don't stop, don't feel like you got to be extra hard, man. I see that so much. Like I said, I got a twin sister. She got a lot of friends that are single mothers, and I got a lot of god kids. I ain't even mentioned the god kids. I just mentioned my my kids, but I got a
Yeah.
gang of god kids because I love on everybody, and that's something that I always tell the moms is like, you don't got to be extra hard on your sons, punching them and trying to be meaner while you letting your daughter get away with murder, so to speak, because you feel like, you got to take up or make up for what dad's not doing it. Just love him and, be there and
Yeah.
definitely get some men around him to do that part.
Right,
Oh.
right. Because
Mm.
I'm glad you said that. You need
Mhm.
to, because you did women, single women, who are raising boys definitely need to get some mentors, some men mentors in their life, because the misconception is that a woman can show a boy how to be a man, and that's impossible because she don't know how to be a man. She's a
Facts.
woman. She's a woman, so she cannot show him how to be a man.
I like to say,
You know,
whoa, man. She a whoa,
yeah,
man.
yeah, she's a
Whoa,
woman.
man.
Yeah. So all she can do is get some positive influence in his life and point him in that direction. Like you say, deacons, some pick somebody that in sports that he like. If he likes sports, point him, to that direction, or whatever he likes. Just try to pick a male influence. Your if you got a brother,
Yeah.
your uncle, you let him follow those type of people, but don't try to, like you say, hit them because you're trying to make up to be a man. And that's not going to work because you can't do it. You cannot show a man, a young man, how to be a man because you're a woman.
And I
These are the
needed that
facts.
for me for
Yeah,
sure because I am raising an 11-year-old, and
yeah,
it's
Ooh.
I
We'll play
did
for
try to be that, that tough, but it's not.
yeah,
I don't want to be tough. I don't want to
you.
be like that. And so I'm thankful for, my dad and my brother and the men he has in his life.
yeah,
And I just put what do they say? A call to you all this generation to love on these little boys. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like, and be consistent with them.
Yeah.
because they do look up to you. But if you're not consistent, that teaches them inconsistency, and then they feel like, okay, well, the person I looked up to don't even call me no more. They don't care, so why? It's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
important. And don't get so, like you said, go to therapy. Don't get so caught up in your trauma, and not realizing that, yes, you may have experienced it, but you could be the one that can help a little boy or someone or your own son not
Come on.
go through that same thing, and give them what you didn't have or felt like you didn't get, and stop just always playing the victim
Yeah.
sometimes, like somebody owes you something. And then, but that's just that last part, that was for me. I needed that. So I just, man, you guys have really gave me some hope tonight, because my goodness. Nina, did you have anything else that you wanted to add, or did you guys have anything else you wanted to add?
The only thing I did want to say is just the other thing I've learned is I think as a society we shun the past. We shun some of our history, especially.
Mhm.
I'll be first to say, I'm raised in the church. Spare the rod, spoil the child. I still believe
Yeah.
in that, but I also believe that our parents, we whoopings came from that slave mentality. That's how the master kept us in check. So it was
Mhm.
brought down. Grandparents, that's how they learned it in the same breath. So again, don't get it twisted. I definitely believe in sparing the rod, spoil the child, but I also believe that there are other ways to correct your children without putting hands on them. And that's where, as parents, we got to be mindful. First thing I tell parents, even nowadays, is never whoop your children when you're upset. If you
Yeah.
can't wait, take a deep breath, relax later in the day, and have a conversation. There's a difference between discipline and punishment. Or because punishment is there's no lesson there. Punishment is
Mhm.
punitive. You just want them to whatever they did, whatever happened, you want to teach them or just punish them for that. However, when you're disciplining your child, you're talking to them, you let them understand that this is why I'm doing this. This is why you're losing this. This is why we can't do this. This is why you're gonna get this whooping or whatever. There's a lesson to be taught. That's true discipline. And I think a lot of us, especially as minorities, we know how to punish our kids because we were punished.
Mhm.
We're just being real. But make sure we're disciplining our children. The other thing is, I like old school tactics. I remember living in my mama's house at 18, 19, and because I lived there, she said, "You don't close no doors in my house." I'm a grown man. I don't care. You got a girl. I was engaged at the time. You would not say keep that door open. In the same
Yeah.
breath, now I don't got no grown kids yet. That's 18, 19 of them son, but same thing. Keep that door open. It got to be that respect factor. They come in, ain't no boys in my daughter's rooms at all. Period, point blank. It just don't
Yeah.
happen. All right. Y'all come out in this living room. I got a whole play area that I set up for my children. So when they have friends over, they can have a safe place to be, hang out and kick
Right.
it. That's kind of cool, but it don't got to be the bedroom. I think parents sometimes we don't, I don't believe in privacy for children. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. I check phones. You do the look. You give me a reason to wonder. What they say, reasonable suspicion. I'll take the door off the hinges real
Yeah.
quick.
And I wanted to piggyback off of the discipline because I am in total agreements. I wasn't always the person to abide by a lot of the things that you stated because a lot of children are very, very intelligent and they're not able to express themselves because they're not given room to express themselves because they're already told that you got to do it this way when that way may not even be the way they learn.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so in discipline, we need to, as parents, have a resolution for our children to understand what they after you discipline now, what are you going to put in play there for them to understand how they're supposed to move forward? Because
yeah,
if we're always correcting, we're not redirecting. And
Mhm.
my thing is, I think as parents, for me, we get so lost in trying to protect our kids from what we experience that we don't
yeah,
start guiding our kids from what we have experienced.
Oh,
We
that's
all
good.
we all we do is recycle what we've been taught. And if it really worked for us, why would we be going through trauma anyway?
come
So a
on.
Mhm.
lot of the stuff that we kind of went through really didn't work. We're just repeating a cycle and passing it down to our children as though that's the thing that we should have actually done from jump. But reality of it was, is it? Was it? I mean, be
Yeah,
honest with you. Ask your grandmother if she's still alive. Why did she do that? She probably wouldn't even have a real answer. She probably would just tell you because it was done to me.
yeah, yeah,
And I watched, and I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna leave that alone. I watched my grandmother take care of her children, her children's children, and she never had a life of her own. She always bare the fruits of somebody else's labor. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Wow.
And I'm saying all that to say is what you just said about women. We don't really realize who we are and what we need to be in our children's lives because we wasn't even taught that. And as a man, when you saying what you were saying about the children and making sure they come in the area, they have a room to play in and all those things like that. Sometimes sitting down with your children and find out where their mind is where that's the best connection. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah, yeah.
girls go straight to boys because they're needing connectivity.
Hmm.
Mm.
They're needing connectivity and they're not getting it because daddy or mommy is too invested, and they need to see mommy and daddy have a healthy communication.
That's
They
right.
need to see mommy and daddy be intimate. They need to see mommy and daddy touch and hold hands or give each other words of encouragement and affirmation. See,
Yes.
this is the
Yes.
stuff that we need to bring in our homes because
Yeah.
that's the stuff that they're chasing in the world. It's
Yes.
validation.
Yep.
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying?
Yeah.
So
Well said.
I'm just wanting to piggyback off of that discipline because discipline for me is so overrated in society now that's why we have a lot of kids out here robbing, stealing, killing because they're looking for somebody to protect them or somebody to save them. They're using certain things for outlets because they don't have
They can't
anybody
express their
to.
emotions.
Yeah,
That's
they
right.
don't have any they don't have any redirection is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Whew. Okay.
Yeah.
So, panel,
Powerful.
y'all sit tight. We're gonna go offline, but just want to let everyone know. Thank you so much for tuning in, Mr. Johnson. You, I'm full right now.
It was
Thank you
amazing.
so
I'm
much.
appreciative of your story. Your story has
Yes.
truly, like, I was in and out because I've been working, and I'm apologizing to the panel tonight. Like last Tuesdays, I have literally been doing a lot of work and for other things that I have to take care of. But I just want to let you know, I personally appreciate you being here, sharing your story because men go through so much and we didn't know it. And for you guys to come here and publicly and verbally say what y'all go through, it gives me so much hope, and it gave me the courage to let me know that I don't have to deal with men who cannot communicate.
Not
I'm
just,
just
not
being
only
Hey, I
that,
honest
hear
but
it.
with
the
you.
fact that you
I'm
you
being so
came
honest.
you came on here and not one time did I hear you blame somebody else for the stuff that you
Yes,
went.
not
Not
your
one
children.
time.
You didn't even
One
blame your
time.
mother. You made
Mm.
an assumption to accept that trauma, but you
Yes.
didn't say it was her fault that you were traumatized. And that is what I am, man. That is big. Y'all don't understand what's happening on this stream. And that's what it's all about. Just being here and showing up. You know what I'm saying? So being authentic, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I,
man.
I thank y'all for this opportunity. I thank you for the platform. I mean, for me, like I said, when with everything that's been going wrong, that's said the devil busy. Before we went live, I knew it was for a purpose. But I thank you. Even this last hour has been therapeutic for me, and
Mm.
and being able to speak. Like I said, I'm in the process of the book is written, but I'm transferring it over so I can send it to an editor. But it's encouraging to even kind of verbally say some of the stuff that I've written down, and the response lets me know that I'm right on track and God is definitely not done with me yet.
Please
Well,
let
that
us
is,
know when that
that's
book
what you're
comes
gonna
out
say.
because
Yeah.
we will
Yes.
promote. We gonna buy first, then we
Yeah.
gonna promote
Yes.
Yes,
because
ma'am.
Yes.
we need just the fact that you oof you it's too much. Okay, we gonna let these people go offline. Thank y'all for tuning in. You stay right here. Panel, y'all sit tight.